Hello and welcome to Under the Lens. Obviously, in the past few weeks, we've been doing a lot of quarterbacks with Derek Kloss, and we looked at some linebackers with Charles. But today, we're flipping over out to the secondary. Positions I talk a lot about, but it's a key position with cornerbacks like Richard Sherman, Darrell Revis, and then Earl Thomas has become arguably best defense back in the game. So obviously, role of safety in a growing passing league has become more important, and few are as good at breaking down position than my friend Ian Wharton at NFL Film Study. Ian, how you doing today, man?
I'm all right. I'm recovering after a game one loss for my Cavs, and obviously the heartbreaking news to Kyrie Irving. But all in all, I'm all right. I'm gonna keep spirits up, and ultimately being in the finals is a lot better than thinking about who we're gonna take number one this year. So I'm just gonna stick to the positives and think about that.
Yeah, that whole number one thing, because Cleveland seemed to win the lottery every year. It's always fun as a Kings fan.
Of course, though, we missed out on Carl Anthony Towns this year and Anthony Davis a couple years ago and ended up getting Anthony Bennett. So,
Yeah.
sometimes that number one pick isn't a great thing, but yeah, it's just kind of funny how that works.
Yeah. So today we're looking at FSU safety corner Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, 2016, it's far away, but you just like to get to the prospects early, as mentioned with other things. We're going to look at the player now, and then weeks, months from now, when 2015 games come up, we're going to look at those games, see where they progress, areas they improve, or if they're the same player, different things. So it's going to be a fun project. But today we're starting out with him versus Miami last year. Obviously, when Florida State was number 3. But yeah, so huge piece of that defense. It's going to be fun to watch him. Before we get into him, what are some things initially when you watched him that stood out to you?
Just I like the versatility a lot. The ability to actually play cornerback as a competent player, play safety as a competent player. I think too often, even just in general, we talk about versatility for a player. Well, just because a player plays a position doesn't mean he's versatile. You look at Cameron Irving out of Florida State last year. He was a terrible left tackle, and he never played guard. So was he versatile, or was he just a really, really good center that could possibly move to guard or tackle? Yeah, I think that's more of the case. But you look at Ramsey. Ramsey's versatile. He can be a star at either position. Just a true playmaker too. I mean, this guy's all over the field. That was an extremely good secondary that he was a part of, especially not even just prospect-wise, because we know that P.J. Williams and Ronald Darby were good prospects. They weren't elite prospects, but they were still good, and he was definitely the best of the bunch. So it's very exciting to see a player like this, especially when the NFL is so thirsty for good cornerbacks and safeties. I think he has a real opportunity to really crack the top 10, maybe even higher next year if he continues his stellar play.
That's a great point you brought up about the versatility. I mean, because if like you mentioned, if you're a great center, great guard, and then people saying, well, he could play tackle, but if he's a shitty tackle, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be wanted there. So
Yeah.
really, you're not very versatile at all unless you want to be bad.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're about to kick off this Florida State Jalen Ramsey versus Miami game. So let's jump to it. And just real quickly as we watch, I'll adjust the screen. But would you like it at half speed or full speed?
Let's do half speed.
Yeah.
I love this feature too on YouTube. This is really really clutch, especially when you're looking at offensive linemen.
Oh yeah.
That's really where it's really just a must.
And I'll see if I can get this size.
First thing you definitely notice with him is just how active he is toward the line of scrimmage. Um, there's a tendency, I think, amongst us on draft Twitter that we see more of these players that play in the box, and it's easier to fall in love with them because the TV angles are so limiting. But Ramsey's a good coverage guy, and he got beat on that route, as we saw. But obviously, the playmaker. I mean, you talk about playmaker, physical tackle, where he's still making the tackle, but he's ripping the ball out as well, and the strength. Clive Walford is a man. I mean, that's going to be an NFL contributor right away. That's a big time momentum play. I like seeing that too. He's in the backfield, taking on Walford again, pushing him back. Just the strength, like the strength in his frame. It didn't make the tackle, but he's setting the edge on a tight end. Like, this is ridiculous here. Stays low, and just the sheer strength. It's really impressive.
How is he this strong?
Yeah, and he's just like that safety linebacker, except for he's not like linebacker size or linebacker slow. That's very impressive. He's up at the top of the screen, cornerback now. This is a good game to watch too because Miami had some real talent at quarterback and receiver. Brad Kaya is a pretty good young quarterback. Hopefully we can see maybe a replay. Yep, there we go in the slot. That's a heck of a play design. Ramsey got caught a little bit peeking at the quarterback. He didn't really know where he was. The cornerback, I think that was Darby. Darby looked like he was a little out of position too. He didn't really know exactly where he was running into him, but that's just one of those plays where you just kind of tip the cap to the offense. It's a really good design to mix them up. The NFL runs a lot of that. You'll see a lot of that in the NFL. Got Dorsett going deep. It's not Ramsey's man. Obviously, he wasn't targeted, but that's a blanketed man. Like when I'm charting cornerbacks, that would be a win, just because he's right there with him. You can't assume what's going to happen when the ball comes in the air, but you're just trying to deter the quarterback from making that throw to him.
Oh yeah, I know you're working on the huge cornerback project. I mean, a lot of people like focus on just plays you're involved in, but it's the whole picture. You have to look at plays where ball's not going their way, seeing how their coverage stands out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's really the biggest part, and I think that's the hardest thing to really account for when you're looking at cornerbacks, because there's just so many mistakes that can happen that won't punish a cornerback for bad coverage. Like, could be a bad throw, could be a bad read, could be a drop pass. All that doesn't hurt a cornerback, but in reality, that doesn't mean it was good coverage. You see Ramsey's got the flat. Overall, I mean, you see some other Florida State defenders out of position there, but Ramsey's doing his job. He had the flat on the wheel route, reading the quarterback. I think the one thing that you want to see is him stay a little bit more disciplined. If his man is coming out of the backfield, even if the quarterback is eyeing down his target, you want to keep closer to your man. NFL guys, especially guys like Drew Brees, they'll sell that throw until the last second and then whip it over. But then again, his man was wide open too. So downfield, not Ramsey's, but the other man was wide open for a touchdown.
Now, do you think that has something to do with just being youth? I mean, early player.
Yeah, definitely, and role in the defense too. I mean, again, he's meant to be the playmaker, and you'll see that with like Troy Polamalu. That'd probably be one of my better comps for him is a guy like Polamalu who he's going to be burned sometimes, but that instinctual type aggressive behavior, it's consistent. And for the most part, it'll work out better. And you just kind of live with the losses at times, because if he's a good enough playmaker, it's okay if he gives up, a couple small things here and there. Again, you see the strength. He didn't make the tackle. You'd like to see him break off that block a little bit, but even just with his arms, slowed him up a little bit. Just his natural strength is just incredible. It's coming off the edge. Not really much to there. Kaya hits the hot read. Again, very, very impressive just by Kaya. Shows his blitz. Oh, go ahead.
Was Kaya a freshman?
Yeah, true freshman.
Yeah.
So he shows his blitz a little early there. Lets the offense account for him. Eric Flowers is able to get to him no problem. Again, that's more of a nuance thing and more of a timing thing. I think it's harder in college to get that right than the NFL. goal line play against Dorsett. Really want to see him do a little bit better against Dorsett there. Dorsett's a smaller guy. Either go outside and set the edge or just break his block as quickly as possible. And he just seemed to defend the route a little bit more than attack the block. But it's kind of funny because you listen to Rex Ryan talk, and Rex Ryan will say, I don't pay cornerbacks to tackle. So, I mean, if he's breaking contain to that far already, the defense is already kind of lost.
Yeah.
I don't put a huge emphasis on tackling. It's great if a cornerback can tackle, but ultimately that's not their job. Their job is to cover, force turnovers, break up passes.
Now,
This is a nice play.
Yeah, and now if you're looking at safety, do you consider it more of an issue?
Yeah, safety has to be able to tackle. That's their number one job, first and foremost. He kind of plays that cornerback safety. So here's what I'm going to be looking at. As soon as the wide receiver breaks, I want you to pause if you can. Go ahead and pause. Okay, so here we see Ramsey up top here, and you look at his feet; they're not flat, which I like. So even though the receiver is breaking, he's already starting to break towards the outside. Because what you don't want to see is flat feet. Because what will happen is the quarterback will read those flat feet if he was standing square, and next time they'll run a double move or it's like a hitch and go. So instead of Walford cutting to the sideline, he's going to make a quick cut outside, then go straight up field. If you're flat-footed, there's no chance you're going to recover at that. This is a really nice job if you want to go ahead and hit play. So even though he wasn't targeted, he closes that gap. So if he throws that ball, it might still be a completion, but you're looking at a 3-yard gain because Ramsey was able to close so quickly.
And as you mentioned, that for future plays, that eliminates a double move and then potentially trying it.
Absolutely. That's a heck of a block by 9. Then he gets up right there where the ball goes down, so that's all right. That's a tough play, man. Those cut blocks are nasty.
Yes, they are.
So you want to go back on this one just a little bit? I'm not sure if that was his man. I don't think it was. Yeah, so that's not his man. So he's attacking number 5, and number 5 was starting to go out a little bit and go back inside, which Ramsey was a little. He kind of bit a little bit here, right there. So we've got Ramsey. He bites a little bit. I mean, that's a really good route too, and it's difficult. These guys are in a difficult position because, they're on an island, and these guys that can cut up field and just accelerate, those guys are really tough to find, and Miami's full of those type of players. Again, overall, that's not a huge concern. That's something that the coaching staff probably on the sideline would say, just kind of watch for this guy to cut that quickly. But Miami was running a lot of these type of routes, and like we just talked about, it sets you up later in the game with that type of stuff. Now the guy on the inside that Walford just beat, now that's a big time loss. That's a big issue for 21.
Can't even. Yeah, so we just got other angles.
Which is great. I wish we had this angle for every play. I was just telling somebody the other day, I was like, I would just watch college football film all the time if they had all 21 for college football. Like it's fascinating because the schemes are so much better to watch than NFL. Because the NFL teams are pretty much all running similar stuff, but college teams can get so zany.
That's the thing. We saw it during BCS championship they do it, but they need to implement it.
Yeah, definitely. So Ramsey definitely, I would give him a loss on that route. He just bit a little hard outside, and he didn't keep himself able to turn upfield with the receiver. But again, I mean, every cornerback loses. It's just one of those things to watch because you don't want to see it constantly happening. Here he is next to the line of scrimmage. This is really where he stars. And part of that is a byproduct by how talented this defense is.
Well, going back to your cornerback project, because you mentioned that all cornerbacks, there's going to be some bad plays. For you, what's a very good percentage of bad plays for a cornerback per game?
Less than 30%. So anything, if they have good coverage 70% of the time, that's a pretty good game. Right there, that's a problem. You know, if you want to go back just a couple seconds there, we can see the issue. Now Ramsey makes the play on it, and that's a tough window for a quarterback to fit that ball into. He's playing underneath, and then he's going to rely on the safety. We're going to see right there. He just lunges at him to make contact, which that's what Dorsett's speed does to guys. It just happens so quick. There's not really anything he did wrong here. Like fundamentally, his back pedal's good. He got back well. He just lunged for him, you don't want to see him lunging for him. But having the safety over top helped, and then obviously his ball skills really came into place there, and that's a good scheme because they didn't want Ramsey one-on-one with him, so they put the safety over top to help protect him, and just had him play trail coverage. But yeah, going back to the cornerback thing, you want to see college corners a little bit higher. You want to see college cornerbacks winning about 80% of the time. Competition's lower, so stakes are a little bit higher in terms of competition. But it's hard too because not everyone that you're playing is NFL caliber. So it's a little bit tougher with college kids because you really have to sift through the competition levels. I think that's an area where Pro Football Focus is going to struggle with their college football project. So he's up here in the slot again. We saw him blitzing. Obviously, that's a nice thing to have as a good blitzer. And it just comes back to physicality and speed. That's just dangerous. With that end zone there. See the length coming into play?
Yeah.
I mean, just his length just made that a really impossible catch. And that wouldn't be a loss. So, like, for me, he makes that play. You just tip the cap to the quarterback. You tip the cap to the receiver because that's just an insanely good play. He's a step behind, but ultimately he's with him there to the last second. He forced a diving catch. I mean, it really would have been a heck of a play to make that.
I mean, even in the NFL, coach pulling you aside, there's nothing.
Yeah. He makes that play, and there's nothing you can do about that. And it's just all you can try to do is get in his way, shield his eyes away from the ball a little bit. But you're facing better athletes on offense, so you have to overcome it somehow. Ramsey has the length to do that. He can make that a really, really tough throw. I mean, because Kai is more impressive than even some lower-end NFL quarterbacks, I think. Not saying he's more talented, but I think at times he even that last throw was a really good throw into the end zone. It just was almost an impossible play.
Yeah, I mean, considering some of the NFL quarterbacks we're going to see coming this year, that's very reasonable.
Yeah, definitely. Here we go. This will be a good one. So he's got Walford. Walford's open there, but all of a sudden he turns on the speed and he baits the quarterback. That's an NFL caliber, move right there. Walford legitimately has 3 steps on him, and he just knows exactly when he can turn the jets on and get to that ball. And that's an interception 9 out of 10 times. And he just ended up dropping it. That's a huge time play. That's one of those plays that in a game that turns into a pick six, and all of a sudden the game has changed. Again, you're going to see physicality, tackling ability. Just he checks all the boxes as far as being inside the box.
And in regards to his athleticism, just on a 247 sports site real quick, 100-meter dash, 10.7, 200 meters, 21.875, has a long jump of 25.3. So, goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be really excited to see how he tests at the combine, because he looks every part of an elite NFL athlete. Again, setting the edge in the run game against the tackle. I mean, no, that is Walford. Okay, that's against Walford though. But again, that's Walford was probably one of the better blocking tight ends in this last draft. So, and he's gonna have a big time role with the Oakland Raiders this year. And I think the one big concern for most safeties is, can this guy get on the field for 3 downs every single game? And I think Ramsey can because of his tackling ability and then his coverage ability too. I mean, you need them both in today's NFL, but the physicality is definitely a nice plus. Because usually you get guys that can cover or tackle. So finding the two that can do both is nice. Again, that's the effect of Philip Dorsett. If you go back just a tad, you'll see Ramsey's having to play. Okay, that's one of the earlier play. Oh no, that is that play. So Ramsey had to stay back a little bit. And yep, right there. Yep, you can see Philip Dorsett on the outside running that deep post. So Ramsey has to kind of play a tough role because he has to stay back enough to break toward Dorsett, but makes the play, comes up, makes the tackle before the first down, or at least is involved in the play, I should say, before the first down. Again, setting the edge in the run game. He's doing that better than some NFL defensive ends do.
Man, talk about a jack of all trades.
And there's some small things that you probably want him to work on, just especially in coverage. He's definitely you definitely look at him as a safety, but his ability to play the slot is really nice. But as he continues to play there, I think you'll see some improvement, especially as you get into the NFL. You really want those hard worker types that's just going to study so much tape. And once he learns, again, he's going to have more time to do that in the NFL. And common opponents is going to be more of a normal thing than college. Where college, you're constantly facing different guys, even on the same team every year. It's hard to know their tendencies and their traits, especially for a team like Miami, who had so many youngsters.
I mean, the one thing the film stuff, I would think, because he's got strength off, you figure putting time in the weight room, he has to be working time, weight room, film room.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely agree. I'd be really surprised to see this guy not as a team captain type person with very high character grades from scouts and coaches. You can generally see that stuff in their play. Marcus Peters last year was a guy that it was just obvious how much film he watched. Special team ability, again, working hard, getting down to the ball. Not a great wrap-up tackle, but again, he's so physically gifted that it's not really – it's one of those things you can get away with a little bit when everything's not – which is good. I mean, you want that. When everything doesn't go right, it's okay. Now, that's the athleticism we just talked about.
That leaping ability, the power and the
competitiveness, love it. You got to love that. Defensive leader. Probably
I'm falling in love.
Yeah, you probably just drew a flag on the guard, Feliciano, another Raider. Good chip. So he disrupts the pass play. And, that's just – there's nothing you can do as a quarterback there. You're like we see interceptions like that all the time, and that's probably should have been his second interception this game.
And he would have had space.
Yeah, that's at least one pick six he probably should have had. But, you take the pass defense, and you're happy with that as a defense. And another backside blitz. Just, it's good that they keep him active. He's a guy you can do whatever you want with him. He doesn't have that single high experience. He's not that type. A little bit more of a strong safety than a free safety. it's gonna be interesting to see him against Sua Cravens of USC. Hopefully draft breakdown can get some cut-ups of Cravens, because Cravens is fun too. It's going to be a good matchup between Ramsey and Cravens this year for top safety, because Cravens is super good too. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Just all that speed, his straight line speed, even his ability to – he dipped his shoulder as if he's a defensive end there to get past the tackle. It's just – you don't see this from even like defensive ends. So as he gets in, boom, dips his shoulder. Man. I mean, that's legitimately like you'll see that from like Cameron Wake. Like that's just boom, dips underneath. I mean, it's just really funny to see that from a safety.
Man, poor big guy. He had no chance.
No. That was a really nice route defending right there. If you want to go back just a tad. As the quarterback just gets pulverized.
Let's go one more time seeing that play.
Boom. All right, here we'll see it. And just watch how quickly he closes on this. Reads the quick in route, so he knows it's 3rd and 2. Boom. There's no point in that play where that ball should be going to his man. Because if he is, I mean, he's just going to get laid out. And it's good awareness, good situational awareness. You'll see a lot of guys kind of forget the situation, and they'll give up that quick route. There it is, another time where he's blitzing, forces a 4th down, and ultimately, this is going to win the game on the next play.
That ability to come off the edge so damn quick.
Yeah, and some of that is, he gets around Eric Flowers, and Flowers is a tough matchup because he's got to get 2 guys. Some of that is due to the talent around him.
Yeah.
Every scheme's not going to be able to do that. However, if you have a good defense, a piece like Ramsey is really going to put you over the top because, as we've seen all game, he's an impact pass rusher. There's not more than maybe 2 or 3 safeties in the NFL in the last 10 or 15 years that's an impact rusher. And like I said, Troy Polamalu is the shining example of that. I mean, that guy was one of I think probably the best rusher I've ever seen at that position. And then here he finally gets his pick. It's a bad throw, and he's playing trail to Dorsett. I think we're going to see probably a couple angles of this. So trail coverage, what you're doing is you're providing that tight window because you're going to have a safety over top, and you're going to be there to pick off a bad throw. So he's passing this off to those 2 safeties right there. I mean, that's an impossible window. That's just, and Kai is in a tough spot too. They're on 4th and 9. They need to make something happen. That's the wrong throw. But, and Ramsey's just the beneficiary there. I wouldn't give him a ton of credit for that. Obviously, it's good that he finished the play.
He didn't drop it, so I'm happy about that.
Right. He didn't drop it, and he wasn't too far behind Dorsett when he passed him off, which that's key as well because, as we just saw, if he's too far behind, he's not going to be there to finish the play. So
let's talk about Ramsey. I mean, today, Dane Brugler, CBS Sports, talking about Ramsey should be in the conversation involving the #1 pick. This is a top player. So for you, comparing some of the top safeties last year, the years past, recent years, I mean, Eric Berry went top 10, so there's that. Where would he rank for you among safeties in the past 6-7 years?
I'd probably have to go back to Berry. Earl Thomas was more of a true free safety. We know that. I don't think he compares to Earl Thomas. It's just as far as his impact on the game, Earl Thomas is the rarest of rare. So I don't really think it's fair to compare him to that. And he's also more of a strong safety. I would put him closer to that Eric Berry range, and Berry hasn't been the elite safety that he probably should have been, or at least was supposed to be coming out of Tennessee. I think Ramsey can be a better pro than that. I think he can be a little bit closer to, like I said, even like, I hate to compare to like a Hall of Famer, but more in the mold of Troy Polamalu, where he can do 2, 3, 4, 5 things in a game. Just utilize them really however you want. And, Barry was supposed to be that guy. So I would put him in the same conversation as Barry was as a prospect.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, comparisons mean similar skill set, and you're not saying he's a Hall of Famer. You're saying if you look at skill sets, what they can do for a team, that he fits perfectly with that.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, let's talk about, I mean, it's still early, but I mean, if you could imagine the dream scenario for him, where would he go?
Realistically, I think you'd want to see him in a place like Jacksonville. Although they've added a couple safeties, they had added James Sample, so I'm not necessarily, sure that they need a need like that per se. A lot of teams could use a guy like that. Pittsburgh, obviously, they would know exactly how to use him. They're going to they're going to be undertaking a little bit of change here in their secondary as they got Senquez Golston and Duran Grant. But they need help at safety as well. Safety is one of the most average positions in the NFL. It's just kind of a forgotten position for teams, I think. And so, as you go down the line, you could say, Atlanta, what they're building in their secondary, I think he would be a really good fit there, especially as they added a couple pass rushers. Adrian Claiborne, obviously everyone's favorite, Vic Beasley. If you had an impact safety to add back there, I think that would really be a standout performer back there. Another probably realistic team that you might see in the top 10, because again, I think Ramsey's that type of talent. You'd have to be looking at maybe even like the Houston Texans. I think the Texans have a really good roster, but I'm really worried about their quarterback position. They've been looking for safety help for so long. Maybe even since they've come back as an expansion team, they've lacked an impact safety. DJ Swearinger, he made some impact plays, but he just wasn't consistent enough, and that's what ultimately, and a lot of character issues there, is what led to his release, and ultimately he's with Tampa Bay now, and even Tampa Bay, that's another team that could use him. So really any team could utilize him, because you can put him in the slot and he'd be perfectly fine there full time. He's going to be less of a Chris Harris type slot. Chris Harris is a guy that he's definitely more athletic in terms of just like coverage. So he's got quicker feet. He's more of a pure coverage guy. Ramsey's more of a playmaker type. He's going to be going for the big plays. He's going to be playing off coverage a little bit and just breaking on routes, working downhill, which is more of a size thing and quickness thing than a guy at like safety. So safety, you want a little bit more speed than quickness. But I would definitely project him as a strong safety with the ability to play slot corner just fine. I mean, and then you can obviously bring him off the edge for blitz.
And real quickly before we wrap it up, because I mean, on Twitter, you've been talking about this cornerback project you're doing, looking at all the cornerbacks. So why don't you talk about that and the work you've done so far, and we'll continue doing the coming weeks.
Yeah, so I'm just wrapping up the AFC now. I'm at the Indianapolis Colts. What I'm doing is I'm watching every snap for every starting cornerback in the NFL. There's a few exceptions in there for like guys that aren't projected to be part of the rotation, or guys that haven't logged at least 500 to 600 snaps, just because I need that many snaps to at least get a decent data point, a decent sample size to work off of. On average, and I'm mainly in man coverage. So there are teams that run a lot of zone, players that enter their direct zone where the cornerback can make a realistic play on it and realistically should be in the position to play the ball. That counts as well. So definitely check it out. It's at the hashtag coverage productivity. How I measure guys getting open is usually more than an arm's length away, where the quarterback should be able to realistically thread a pass there. Plays that like clear out routes, stuff like that, like obvious passing plays that we're never going to that side of the field or going to that route. I try not to count those, because if the receiver never even looks back for the ball, all it was a clear out route. And we know that that's just, it doesn't really matter if your guy was beat on that, because the ball was literally never going to go there. So it's very, very subjective. And I do admit that, but I try to keep the same rules for every single player that I watch. Definitely, it's definitely interesting to see, because a lot of these cornerbacks, I feel it's hard to judge them, because we only have tackles, we only have interceptions, and we only have passes defenses measured. But this is trying to fill the gaps. Who's consistently shutting down their man? Even if they're allowing touchdowns or even if they're allowing receptions, how good was their actual coverage? Because, like I said, there are some plays where a receiver just might make an amazing play, and there was great coverage. And there's just, I mean, I'm not going to give a guy a loss when Des Bryant just climbs over his shoulders, makes a one-handed catch, and it was just a ridiculous play. Like, that shouldn't be a loss. And it's counted against these guys when you look at any type of measure except for coverage productivity. So that's where I'm trying to fill in the gaps. I'm not saying it's the answer to everything, but I do think it's a way to look at things a little bit differently and say who's actually a shutdown corner. And it also separates guys who are a big variance player like Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden gives up a lot of touchdowns. He gives up a lot of big plays. He's horrible with his technique. However, he's a huge playmaker. That guy makes big-time interceptions. When he gets the interceptions, he does a good job of returning them, if not to the end zone, then at least a good amount of the time, a nice chunky yardage. So for me personally, I don't like that type of player, but I can certainly rationalize and make a good argument for him. And I can make a good argument as to why you should like that type of player. So I think that's more of the benefit of this, is just kind of seeing who's more consistent than not. And then also I'm charting individual routes that they're defending so we can see where they're constantly losing, where they're consistently winning. And at the end, I'll have a big data sample. So then we can I'll average it all up and kind of figure out, really tally who's best at what, and then hopefully keep tinkering with it to make a big formula that can encompass touchdowns, passer rating against, all that fun stuff that coverage productivity doesn't factor in.
Awesome. And this is, first, be sure you're following me on Twitter at NFL Film Study. I mean, just one of the best out there, just bigger things every week. Just phenomenal work. Bleach Report, everything he does. Be sure to follow him. And before we let you go, you said you've done pretty much all the AFC teams. Who's one cornerback that really stood out to you, who you feel is underrated, and one cornerback who stood out as being really overrated?
I think my most overrated so far has been Jason McCourty for the Tennessee Titans. I don't see any type of consistency from him. He's not a high variance player necessarily because he's not forcing a ton of interceptions. He does a good job of finishing plays when he has a chance at interceptions, but it's just he's not around the ball too often. So I don't see really any type of standout talent. To me, he's an average player that struggles getting to the ball and really sticking with his man. Underrated, I would probably go with relative to what people think, maybe Sean Smith for Kansas City. Smith is a guy, he's always been a height, weight, speed type player, and he really is good at using that, though. Like, he closes passing windows so quickly, 6'3", 4'4" speed, and it shows. I mean, the guy he doesn't have a bad technique. He just gets away with a little bit extra because he's able to use those arms and just close those passing windows so quickly. And he's really developed into a true number one cornerback. I don't think he's an elite cornerback, but he's definitely in the mix for that tier two, that solid tier two type cornerback currently out there. And plus, he's only like 25 or 26 years old and about to be a free agent. So this will be a big year for him after his suspension goes up, which I think he has like a 2-game suspension.
Outstanding. Again, I mean, just such great work you're doing. And one thing, I mean, NFL fans, you're going to love the work that he's doing, but also I feel like fantasy football fans, when you look at these numbers, you can see for matchup based with your wide receiver on a week-to-week thing, seeing, well, what's a good matchup for your wide receiver. So I think in so many ways, what Ian's doing is huge. Ian, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Looking at doing more in the future.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. We'll be sure to connect and continue to do these moving forward.
Definitely. Everyone, I want to thank you for watching. We'll be tweeting out the link later tonight. And Under the Lens, just keep following it. Love doing it. It's a lot more coming in the future.